Animal Crossing is one of my favorite video game franchises and one of the game series that I've spent the longest time with. I grew up spending hours talking to neighbors, fishing, collecting bugs, listening to KK's music, and being annoyed that I had to stop playing to let my sisters have a turn, because sharing is not caring and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I've played every mainline game in the series and most of its spin-offs, except that which shall not be named, so the nostalgia and love I have for Animal Crossing is real, so my feelings in this video aren't coming out of nowhere or just to pick up the game for the sake of it. Even with everything I'm about to say, if a new Animal Crossing game were announced and released right now, I would stop making this video and go out and buy it, no questions asked. That's how much I really do love chilling with the animal gang. But the truth of the matter is that with each subsequent Animal Crossing release, each new game has held my attention for less and less time. The time dwindling starting somewhere around City Folk, and with New Horizons holding my attention for less than even a month. Even my siblings didn't really take to it the same way that they had with the previous games. And once I noticed how quickly I fell off, I couldn't help but think that there's just something missing from Animal Crossing. After thinking about it, I kinda just felt like there's not really anything to do in Animal Crossing. Which is weird, right? Because there's a whole bunch of different things that you can do in Animal Crossing, especially if you're talking about New Horizons. There's your core activities like talking to neighbors, fishing, decorating, etc. And each game has their unique additions like City Folk City or New Leaf's Clubby thingy. I mean, you can basically fully customize and recreate your island to your heart's desire now. And also, it's kind of part of the charm of the series that you don't have to do anything and that everything is just at your own pace. So then what's the issue? I mean, yeah, some of those unique features have come and gone. I mean, pour some coffee out for the boy Brewster. But that's not really a huge issue because there's always something new that replaces something that's left. And I think that there is the argument to be made that I'm just older now and I don't have the time, or this kind of game just isn't for me anymore and my tastes have changed. But I really don't think that's it, because while I was playing it, I was having a really good time. It's just that I fell off really quickly. And I had the time because it came out during a global pandemic where I basically sat around doing nothing for a year. So then what is it? Well, to make an already long story shorter than it could be, I think that while really cool and great developments and additions have been made in Animal Crossing, I believe that the core hasn't really evolved very much. And in some ways, it's honestly regressed a little bit. And because of that, there's definitely a been there, done that kind of feeling I get with each new entry. But what is the core of Animal Crossing? Because, I mean, that does sound kind of vague. Well, to me, it's basically all the things that you do on a daily basis in the game. Homeownership, so stuff like paying off loans, expanding, and decorating. Economy-based stuff, so that would be your earning money, buying and selling stuff. Your leisure activities, so that would be the things like fishing, bug catching, digging, donating, etc. And then obviously interacting with your neighbors. To me, everything outside of these things are somewhat auxiliary, because while there's nothing in Animal Crossing that you have to do, everything outside of these things are either something that can't be done on a daily basis or just not very often. Something that doesn't really affect anything in the in-game world, or it's just something that you can honestly go your playtime without doing. Now, of course, those auxiliary things are super important, don't get it twisted. They're the things that help make the game far more enjoyable. Going to holiday events, listening to KK on Saturdays, and terraforming your island are all the things that really amp up the game and make it great. But they're also kind of like the seasonings and the sauces to the dish, where the core gameplay is like your beef. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like you're here for the beef, but The spices and the sauce take it to the next level. And I feel that if you look at that core gameplay, the beef, you aren't really doing anything much different from what you've been doing since the original game, back in 2001. Yeah, there are some new items and new stores and new villagers, but the systems and the way in which they function haven't really changed. So for me, it feels almost like I've been doing the same thing for like 20 years. And that sucks because I love these games and I feel like there's so many ways in which that core gameplay could be expanded on. Some ways that seem kinda obvious to me and some less so. And some things that other games have been doing for years that Animal Crossing just hasn't picked up. So to me, the areas that need the most expansion are the economy-based stuff, your leisure activities, and most importantly, interacting with your villagers.
Oh man, 240? It's not even enough for the bus home.
There's really not a lot of interesting ways to make money in Animal Crossing. For the most part, it's collect some stuff and sell it, gather some bugs, fish, or fossils that you've already donated to the museum and sell them. Or more than likely, you just shake a bunch of trees for fruit. It's not exactly the most engaging process. Even the turnip stock market isn't the most interesting thing in the world and usually just gets cheesed by time traveling. So why not add some more ways to make money? Up until recently, at the start of each game, you worked a part-time job for Tom Nook. Why not elaborate on that? One way to earn money as well as to interact with the other various systems of the game could be to optionally do some jobs for Tom Nook. Every day, maybe with the exception of like weekends or something, you could do maybe 5 or so tasks for him. The standard delivering items to and from villagers. Not only villagers, but businesses as well. You could also get some interesting and new interactions with your villagers and shopkeeps alike, gifting you items for helping you out or asking you about your job. And then maybe you go into the shop one day and you see one of the villagers you talked to about your job now having a part-time job there too. And now you have even more ways to interact with your villagers. Maybe you could have to clean up around the store or organize items or tend to a customer's request. Each one of these chores having its own mini game wherein which your performance dictates how much money you get or don't get. These 5 chores could be randomized every day and you could complete them or not at your own pace. So I think that having jobs in general that you could choose to do or not would be a good idea. I know that New Leaf had a kind of part-time job that you could work with Brewster, but it came and went in one iteration without ever getting a chance to settle down roots or develop. I mean, imagine working in the cafe and you get to play a mini game where you make coffee and serve it to the customers. Then you can chat with them about their day and hear them complain or tell you secrets about themselves or other villagers. And then, depending on how you react, changes whether they leave happy or upset. And you'd have to choose your answers based off the type of personality that your villager has. And then how well you make the coffee could play into it. Like, maybe if you make them bad coffee, then their starting mood lowers, or if you make them good coffee, it improves their starting mood. And your pay could be based off of how happy the customer was when they left. You could help out the Able sisters, or be a museum attendant, or just participate in any of the other shops that have come and gone over the years. Maybe you could even set up your own stall and sell your customized or unwanted items to villagers that pass by. And each one of these little jobs could have their own mini game or activity that go along with it. Having these little optional jobs would just be a really cool and fun way to spice up earning money. And it would just give you a lot more things to do in the game in general. The activities and mini games being integral because I feel that more things like that would be a good way to expand on the leisure activities. And it would get me to spend more time in game. Because honestly, fishing and stuff only holds my attention for so long. And boy, I'm tired of catching C+ bass. So imagine if they added like a city back into the game, like from City Folk or the main street from New Leaf. You could have some really cool places to spend time doing activities. So imagine you go into the city and you see a mixture of your villagers and your friends' villagers, and then villagers that you haven't seen before, all of whom you could talk to and maybe even get to move into your town. And then in neon lights, you see a sign that says arcade, and when you head over, you see that Nintendo brought back all the NES games that they had in the original, and you can spin your bells to play them like a real arcade. Or maybe there's a bowling alley that you could play matches at, or a pool hall, or even karaoke. It would expand the number of things you could do just to relax and enjoy the game outside of grinding for bells and items. Now, I do think that there is an argument to be made that these additions wouldn't necessarily be considered part of the core gameplay and would probably be something more like the auxiliary things that I had mentioned before, but I think that if implemented right, it would end up being part of your daily activities, because it would play off the other core parts of the game. You could interact with your villagers at these different locations and have unique dialogue that extends to back when you're in town. You could compete with them or even team up for different games, like playing against someone at pool or teaming up for a duet at karaoke, giving you a new way to hang out with your villagers. You could win prizes for getting high scores that could be like bells or trophies or furniture, nook miles, whatever. It would give you an incentive to participate because now you can earn something for playing as well as see new sides of your villagers, which would be the best part. The villagers are the most important thing about Animal Crossing. I mean, they're the selling point. I mean, it's the reason the game is called Animal Crossing. Or the Rutsu no Mori if you're in Japan. But I feel like they're also the aspect that needs the most expansion.
Hey, I think you're really cool. I like you a lot. Maybe we can hang out or something.
Now to me, it seems that New Horizons villagers are probably the most bare bones that they've ever been. No matter how much I talk to someone, I always get these 2-sentence conversations and very little dynamic interaction, and honestly has felt kinda dull to me. Which is a shame because to me it seemed like the prior games had villagers that were more chatty and more dynamic. But really, even at its peak, I think that they still fall woefully short of what they really could be. Expanding the other areas of the game already make room for so much more interaction and dynamic conversations, which I think is really needed. Because right now, for the most part, whenever I interact with someone, maybe they'll mention what I'm wearing or give me some random item that has nothing to do with anything. But wouldn't it be cool if, like, the day before you got the high score at the arcade and you're walking around town and Bam sees you. Suddenly he makes a beeline towards you and he seems upset. He starts telling you about how someone beat his high score at the arcade and he doesn't know who it was or how it was even possible. And then now you have options. You can tell him it was you. You can lie to him and tell him you don't know who it was. Or you could even tell him that it was a different villager altogether. And then now even more possibilities open up. Like what if you told him that Ken beat his high score? And then later in the day, you see them talking to each other, both clearly upset because Bam keeps insisting that he beat his high score and he wants to know how he did it. And Ken has no idea what he's talking about. Like, let's be honest, I just want to tell bold-faced lies and create drama for no reason. But maybe you tell him that you are the one that beat his score, and then he confesses to you that he made himself a high score t-shirt, but now that he doesn't have the high score anymore, he wants you to have it. No matter what choice you made got you an interesting result. Having more dynamic interactions and situations, especially ones where your actions and choices actually change what the villagers do and feel, would be amazing. And with that being said, I think it should totally be possible for villagers to dislike you. Maybe not like full on hate you, because this is a family friendly game and Daddy Nintendo doesn't want the kiddies to be sad, but I still think that if you mess with, neglect, or do something that would naturally have an adverse effect on a villager's feelings, then it should totally be possible to fall out of favor with them and have them actively dislike you. Doing things like avoiding you, being short with you, or even actually getting mad at you. And then they would stay like this until you refriend them over time. They might even move away if you don't do it quick enough. It would give you even more reasons to interact with your villagers in all the possible ways, as well as give you a way to express your feelings towards them. Some of these aspects could even extend to villager-on-villager relationships, where different villagers might actually have beef with each other, and you can hear them talk about it while you're working at the cafe, talking trash about how Hamlet always smells like sweat or something. And then maybe you can even be the middleman into fixing their relationship. I know that the opposite does somewhat already exist in game, where interacting with villagers more makes it more likely for interesting things to happen, but I still think you could amp it up, where there's more of a relationship system and you actually have to earn the different villagers' friendship. Like a lighter version of a confidant system from Persona, or just any relationship system in any of the other games that exist. You would actually have to build the relationship by doing activities together, participating in events, giving gifts and whatnot. Each personality having their own preferences and dislikes. The better the relationship, the better things that they'll do for you, and more interesting and dynamic the interactions would be, as well as the better they would probably be at doing activities on your team. Like, dude, let me just take Flurry on a date. That's all I want. That's all I need. This whole video is just a thinly veiled plot to get Nintendo to let me take Flurry on a date. That's all this is. That's all this is. Look at those chicks.
Girl, you're thicker than a bowl of oatmeal.
Half jokes aside, you really should be able to invite villagers out to places to hang out. And yeah, not on actual romantic dates, cause that's probably a line we don't want to cross. Not that Nintendo ever would. But like taking someone bowling to improve your friendship with them. Or just to have fun playing the bowling minigame. Or invite someone to a picnic where they'll have special dialogue. Even let me be able to plan parties or special events outside of the scripted ones for holidays, where I can invite all the cool people and then those who didn't get invited get mad at me. There could even be a system in mini games for throwing parties. Dude, there's just so much potential. It's honestly endless. Cause to me, that's what's really missing from Animal Crossing. It's missing core development, yeah, but all that really means is that Animal Crossing is missing out on reaching its true potential, at least in my opinion. Now, to be fair, I think that it's pretty difficult to change too much about Animal Crossing, because I think that you could really easily ruin that low-key, chill, relaxing vibe that Animal Crossing has. Like, I really had some cool ideas, but then I was like, oh wait, that would turn this game into like a management light game. I don't want that, and I know that no one else would want that either. But I think the things that I've mentioned here still would fall under the low-key chill vibe and still fit with Animal Crossing. Though I could definitely see how for others stuff like having to actively maintain friendships or working part-time jobs could kill that low-key relaxation vibe, or would just seem like doing too much. I get that, and I think that's for sure fair. And I also know that things like villagers being too angry or committing hate crimes towards squirrels is kinda outside the Nintendonian philosophy. And then maybe some of these things would just be too difficult to implement on the development side. I don't know, I'm not a developer, so I don't really know what would actually be possible to implement in a game like this. And I understand that too. But I still think it's okay because the things I mentioned here are just examples. I'm sure that the developers could come up with some great and more feasible ways to extend on the core gameplay in ways that are probably a million times better than my ideas. Cause for me, I just want Animal Crossing to be all that it can be. And I don't really think it's there yet. And I know that these are probably selfish and personal wishes for the game, but I think that if that beefy core doesn't do something to shake things up, Animal Crossing, one of my favorite game series of all time, might just lose me. Because at the end of the day, to me, Animal Crossing is just missing out on living up to its potential. Hey, if you made it this far into the video, I just want to say thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I also hope that it was intelligible, and I hope I got my point across that, you know, Animal Crossing is a game that I really love, and I just want to see some more from it, you know, see what it can do and what it can be. Yeah, so once again, thanks for watching if you made it this far. If you liked the background music, it is a song I made, and it probably will be up on the channel, so go ahead and listen to that if you want to.